Let's go.
And then I'm going to say, Derek, add some flames.
Add some flames. Who do you think I am?
This is going to be visual.
Derek, add lightning bolts.
Hey, we going Hollywood, baby.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to the Fantasy Football Podcast that is called the Halftime Adjustments Podcast. Derek, Colton, and guest star David Benavides is here today. And we are all here to talk about some fantasy football this upcoming season. So today's episode is going to be about the top 10 tight ends this year. And I'm excited. I'm excited to start talking about this and dive into it. How you guys doing today, huh?
Just doing fantastic.
I'm doing good. Now that I'm here with my boys, Derek and Colt.
David, you're looking so good sitting over there, dude.
Hey, Luis, they don't need you no more, baby. Just stay where you're at.
Luis isn't here because he's hungover, and that's okay. I'll let him
You got a better looking man who knows more about football.
And I can pronounce the names right. Just saying. Too far. Low blow.
It's a low blow. Don't do my boy Luis like that. All right. Well, yeah, today we're going to talk about our top 10 fantasy tight ends for the upcoming season. But before we get into that, we need to dive into some of the news that's breaking this past week. A couple of things. Tyreek Hill claimed the number one spot on the NFL Top 100, huh? Yeah. First wide receiver in like 8 years or something.
Something crazy.
That's pretty great.
Over Mahomes and over CMC. And over Lamar. I don't think Lamar should have been that high on the list. He was at number 2, but that's just my opinion.
I mean, didn't he win MVP this past year?
No, that was Christian McCaffrey.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, McCaffrey
Dang.
won MVP. Offensive MVP.
That's crazy. Yeah, I think I don't know. I kind of like the fact that they're not putting straight quarterbacks as number one each year now. It kind of gives me hope that maybe the MVP will not just be quarterback and offensive rookie of the year won't be quarterback. It's kind of just become the quarterback award. And then the offensive player of the year and defensive player of the year are actually the awards that are normally reserved for the best players, whereas the MVP is just the best quarterback. So I kind of like they gave him his flowers and put him up at the very top. I think it's well-deserved.
Hey, so real quick, Derek, to point what you just said, Lamar did win MVP last year.
He did?
He did. Yep.
What did McCaffrey got? I thought McCaffrey won
He
MVP.
probably won Best Offensive Player of the
Offensive
I
year.
bet
player
he
of
won
the year?
offensive player of the year.
He
Oh,
probably won Best
okay.
Offensive Player.
So it was Lamar that won MVP
Yeah.
overall
Mhm.
last year. Wow.
Yep.
Okay, well that's cool. That's cool. But yeah, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter because Tyreek Hill claimed the number one spot, NFL Top 100.
Deserving. Heck yeah.
In addition
Drafted
to
number one overall.
yeah, In addition to that, they agreed to rework his Tyreek Hill's contract, so he's on a new revamped 3-year deal with $65 million guaranteed. So yeah, that's
Gonna need it for all them babies. Dude's got like 4 baby mamas.
Dude can literally start a whole roster. Him and Phillip Rivers. God, that'd be a scary team.
Yeah. And Goodell must have reached out to them personally to start creating the next generation of players because that's the only thing that makes sense.
God. Yeah, so a couple of Tyreek Hill news segments there. Other news segments is Geno Smith avoided a significant injury, which is good for his teammates, I guess. But he had some sort of knee issue or hip problem, and but apparently he didn't do anything too serious to further injure that, so he should be good for the start of the season. What else? Let me see. DeAndre Hopkins.
Someone who's not going to be ready by the first season.
Somebody's not going to be ready by the beginning of the year. Yeah, I mean DeAndre Hopkins, he's gonna he has a knee injury and he's gonna probably miss several weeks. Apparently, several usually means like 6 to 8 around that time. I mean, this is kind of expected with what his age is. He's like one of the older running backs or wide receivers, I should say, in the league. He's like 32 years old already. Which is one less weapon for Will Levis to have out there. But I mean, hey, Calvin Ridley's going to be the alpha over there, so I think this just means that more work is coming for Calvin Ridley, and so
also for Tony Pollard too.
Yeah, Tony Pollard,
a catchback. So
Tony
could
Pollard
help all his fantasy owners.
Mm-hmm. Him and
they've done some good things over with Tennessee. They have I mean, Spears, and they still have Chig Okonkwo as well. So I mean, they have plenty of weapons. And when D Hop comes back, he'll just be I think he'll take over sort of that Julio Jones role of just being an insane red zone threat, and just probably getting 3 to 5 touchdowns as just mossing somebody each time he does it.
Right. I think one thing about the Titans that I don't really like for fantasy is their backfield. I don't really like Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears too much. And it's just only because it seems like they're going to do a running back by committee type of thing where they're going to just kind of rotate both of those guys. Mm-hmm. And that's never really good for fantasy. But I mean, I understand where it's a whole new offensive system over there. They don't have Derrick Henry anymore, so they're going to try to run a 2 running back set. So which is understandable for somebody like that. And I think Tony Pollard actually did a lot better being like a running back by committee type of thing over there, especially when he was with the Cowboys. He did a lot better when Zeke was over there. So but yeah, this could also mean maybe some work for Treylon Burks. I don't know if we're still high on him, but there's
hope. There's hope.
Yeah, there's hope for him.
There's still hope.
Yeah, I mean, I actually think the only person I want to own right now is Will Levis. I think they have put him in a really good situation to succeed. They spent their first round pick on debatably the best offensive lineman in J.C. Latham this past year. They went out and got him Calvin Ridley. They thought D Hop was going to start the season. Looks a little shaky, but they do still have Treylon Burks. You have they bring in Tony Pollard. They continue to build the offensive line. So maybe Calvin Ridley, but the only person I feel really comfortable owning is Will Levis.
Right.
I'm actually really high on him this year. Not to spoil a future episode coming, but he's like a really deep sleeper for me that I'm picking up in every draft that I can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, understandably, I'm pretty high on him too. They put him in a perfect situation to succeed, and he's still really young. He's really good for like dynasty teams. So I totally agree with that. Last bit of news, and this one's kind of a concerning one, is Chargers Justin Herbert sustained a foot injury, some sort of plantar fasciitis type of thing. They're still expecting him to play in week 1, but this is something that might linger if he's not too careful with the injury and not too cautious. Then this could be something that could linger throughout the whole season. I actually had this injury. Like I remember having this injury, and like it sucks. It's like you basically can't walk. It's like it's so hard to walk with this injury, and I think that if he's trying to recover in a span of 2-3 weeks, so that way he can be ready for week 1, this might be kind of a tough thing to do. But I mean, this might make him less mobile as well. So I don't know. I'm just kind of watching how he can recover from this. I mean, it's a pretty simple recovery process. You basically have to just let it heal on its own. There's some sort of massage therapy training that you could do to kind of like help with that, but I mean, this is one of those injuries where it kind of has to heal on its own in a way. But I don't know. Just
Who's their backup? I don't even know.
what was his
Isn't
name?
the dude from TCU, Max?
Oh, was it Max Dunnan?
If he's still there.
Dunnan? I don't remember what his name
If
is.
he's still there.
But
I
yeah,
don't know. If I'm Jim Harbaugh, though, I'm not rushing it.
yeah,
There's no point in rushing it. Probably
I'm-
playing by week 3, 4, if that. You can go 1 and 2, still make playoffs. I mean,
yeah. I wouldn't rush it either. I mean, I feel like he might miss maybe 1 or 2 games from it. If he misses 1 or 2 games from it and he's completely healthy after that, I would be totally fine with that. Like, don't rush it.
Yeah, I think you take that. Everything that I've seen is that it's a bit of a toss-up. This injury, they're saying luckily it wasn't anything like a tear. The plantar fascia is a tough injury to come back from. To Derek's point, it is that sort of stabbing feeling on the bottom of his foot. But I've heard a few people that I was listening to, they've said that probably what's going to end up being the Herbert path to success is a Toradol shot in the foot each game day. And then the rest of the week's just going to really suck for him. And then he's going to go out there and have short-term pain relief to get himself moving again, to where he can be mobile and throw some good passes and do what he needs to do. So hopefully he can get out there and, they can recover him and rehab him the best that he can do. But worst case scenario, it sounds like they're just going to numb him up and he'll be ready to go for week 1 regardless.
Right. Well, yeah, hopefully he'll be ready to go. I mean, get better arch support. Jeez.
wow.
Yeah, he got a question if this is starting to become because last year he had the rib injury, now he has the plantar fascia problem, and just got to wonder if it's ever going to turn into what they're hoping for him. I think it's starting to get to that point, him and Burrow and a few other of these guys, to like, okay, your hype train's starting to run a little bit. Like, what are you actually,
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think he'll be fine. I mean, the one thing that we got to monitor, I think, this season is how Jim Harbaugh's system works with him, and I think that's something that we have to really. We're not going to figure that out until they're actually doing it, and so that's something that we kind of have to just keep an eye out on. So I don't know, like hopefully the system runs well. I know he does a run first approach, so. But hopefully everything just kind of pans out with him because we just don't really know what they're going to do. Like, I mean, Ladd McConkey looks promising. Quentin Johnston's probably going to be a backup. I mean,
poor Quentin Johnson, dude.
Yeah,
he cannot get a break. I mean, the only true hope that they have is Josh Palmer and McConkey. That's it. Let's just be honest. And then hopefully, J.K. can go back to his old ways and stay healthy. He'll be RB1. And then him and Gus Edwards in the back. I mean, that's good. Just in a tough division. I mean, the Chiefs are going to have a better record.
For sure.
For sure. So now you're just really trying to fight for a playoff spot.
So what do you guys think that the division's going to pan out with? Like, is it going to be Chiefs on top, Chargers second?
So I had a dream the other night that there was this amazing running back for the Chargers.
Oh, God.
And he was out here tearing it up left and right. And I thought, dang, I guess my brain's just showing me highlights of LaDainian Tomlinson. Nope.
Shut up.
It was J.K. Dobbins. Yeah, that dude is about to go off and have an LT type season. Be ready.
Now, Cole,
he's going to be so good.
Every night before you go to bed, I want you to pray that he stays healthy. It's the only thing holding him back.
Hey, I do think the vision's going to work for this team. The thing that holds coaches back from being able to normally implement their systems early on is they're taking over the roster of another coach. And Harbaugh was in the unique position to take over a roster that had a very similar system to what Michigan already had in place, and he wasn't tied up to a lot of key contracts. They got rid of Keenan, they got rid of Williams, they got rid of Oh shoot! They got rid of someone on the defensive side. I think it was a cornerback because they kept Mack, they kept Bosa, and they kept Derwin James. So they kept the big pieces that he would want on the defensive side of the ball. Then they were in the unique position to be a really good squad already with a franchise quarterback and take a strong offensive player like Joe Alt. He was able to select the running back he was going to put into place with Gus and with JK. So overall, I think it is going to pan out really strong because he was able to put the players that he wants in early. He's not taking over someone else's roster.
Well, I mean, I think if JK could do it at any time, this would be the year. Like, this is, like, honestly, he is primed to be, like, one of the guys.
This is truly make or break. If this doesn't pan out this season, I think he only signed a 1-year contract. Like, I think the NFL is going to be ready to move on from Dobbins if it does not happen this season.
No, yeah, I totally agree. And, it just depends. Like, honestly, we've said this a lot especially you have, Colton. You've said this, like, every year, basically, with Dobbins and how he could be, like, so good. He could be amazing for fantasy. Like, you are an avid Dobbins lover. And I love that you're sticking with him. But if he lets you down this year, are you going to finally step away?
It depends on if he stays with the team or not. Like, this is a running back who has still averaged 5.8 yards per carry over his career. Like, we're not talking about a guy who just was really good in college and has fallen off a cliff. Like, even last year in the little bit that he played, he was still averaging 5.8 yards per carry and is still averaging that for his career. So, like, let's say it doesn't pan out for whatever reason, and then another team picks him up, like the Cowboys, for example. They're very running back desperate. And if they say, Dobbins, you are on a 1-year prove-it deal with us. We got rid of Zeke. We got rid of Dowdle. You're our guy. Well, then I'm going to be back on the Dobbins train. But if he goes over to Chicago and is having to fight carries against Roschon Johnson, DeAndre Swift, and he's in a little, 3-headed monster, then I'm going to be less high on him. So I think it's going to work out this year. He is already seeming very optimistic about this being a great season. So my hopes are very high for Dobbins this year.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, my hopes are high for him as well, but we'll see. he's always let us down. Like, he's always let you especially down.
Literally.
So I'm not all in on Dobbins just because of that. If he has a terrible year this year, I'm not gonna be.
It's like upset. We're kind of used to it. So I mean.
Yeah.
Look, the good news is every year that this happens, I get to basically invest less capital in Dobbins. I'm getting him for cheaper and cheaper every single season. So it's the risk is not that high this year to take a guy who could be the RB1 and finish with 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns. So, it only becomes better and better value as it goes along.
Yeah. No, for sure. All right. Well, then that is all the news that we have for today. So without further ado, let's get right into our tight end rankings. So we're going to go from 10 to 1 here, and then we're going to discuss where you can get these top 10 tight ends. We know there's a lot of speculation as to how early you need to draft tight end. I mean, it's a onesie position, like it's a one player position, so you don't really have to, unless you want to start one of them as your flex, but you don't have to do that.
But it could make or break it.
It could make or break your season. Because
I remember last year I had Evan Ingrams and I had McBride as a flex.
So
really, you just really need at least 10 points just from your tight end, and you're already like in a solid position.
It's very true. So. All right, well then, without further ado, let's go to our top 10 people, our top 10 tight ends. So at number 10, we have the man, the myth, the legend, David Njoku at number 10. That is our consensus ranking here at the Halftime Adjustments podcast. David Njoku of the Cleveland Browns. I had him a lot higher, to be honest. The reason we had him so low is because Colton has him a lot lower. And that's fine. That's his opinion. But me and David had him a lot higher. I think
actually I had him at 9, so just one more spot. But
you had him at 9.
I had him at 9.
Okay, yeah. That's right. I had him as high.
Yeah,
I had him really high. I'm the one that had him high. I had him at, I think, what was it? 6, I think.
Yeah, I think 6.
I had him at
6
6.
or 7.
Yeah, I had him at 6. Colton had him at like 11, and then David had him at 9. So our consensus was that he was at 10. It's mostly because of me. I can talk a little bit about this guy just because I kind of have already done some research. People keep forgetting that he was the number 6 tight end over the season last year. And like he had one of the greatest like season ending runs where he finished as like the tight end, like 2-3-2. Like it was like really consistent where he was like getting top numbers. I do understand where it wasn't Deshaun Watson that was throwing him the ball. Like it was Joe Flacco, which is not on the team anymore. But I think finally it is David Njoku's season 2 step up. He's 28 years old. And this is a guy that you can kind of get later in the rounds. Like people kind of keep forgetting about this guy. And he's going around. Let me see. Let me look actually.
I think it was like the 8th or 7th round.
He's going that late?
Yeah.
Wow, that's late. Yeah, if he's going around the 8th and the 7th, you can kind of build a team around somebody with this caliber. So I think he's a great value around that spot. Even if he finishes as the number 10 tight end, I think that's a really good spot still. But yeah, I mean, I'm just really infatuated by like this guy's work ethic. He's having really good rapport with Deshaun Watson right now as well. So I think David Njoku could have a pretty good season for your fantasy team.
So I agree with you, and I have him low because I think the other guys that we'll talk about are better. But right now, he's in a position to where it is Amari Cooper, David Njoku. Like he can literally bid out Jerry Jeudy to be that option too.
Yeah.
So I mean, I expect good things from him, especially if you can get him that low. I mean, why not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, I think for sure that he's primed to be better than Jerry Jeudy for sure. I think he'll be that number 2 guy, behind Amari Cooper.
And whenever Amari Cooper gets injured, because it happens every year, I mean he can even be the number 1 over there.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But then whenever my boy Nick Chubb comes back, it's over.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that I dislike Njoku. The reason why I don't have him in my top 10 is because I believe the situation of the other 10 players I have higher than him are more stable. He's a bit of a wild card, but not because he's a wild card. It's because his team is a wild card. To David's point that he just said, Nick Chubb is not on the team yet. You have Deshaun Watson, who has yet to put a healthy, good season together in Cleveland. They've had to bring in backups. The only reason he was getting the sort of tight end finishes that he was in these previous years was, he was getting, like, here are his targets when he started that run when they brought Joe Flacco in. 9, 15, 9, 6, 8, 14, 9, 8. That's the kind of target share we're talking about. He was on the he went from having roughly a 70% snap share to like an 85% snap share. So he went up significantly in all of his stats when they brought Flacco in. You're going to a quarterback who likes to run, he likes to air the ball out. And I will say the one upside about Njoku is that Deshaun Watson in the red zone, his favorite target statistically since college has been the tight end position. So he will have the opportunity to catch a lot of touchdowns, but driving down the field, it's not. So I don't know that the targets per game are going to be up where they were last year. There's a lot of question marks around him. Him as a prospect, fantastic. His situation, I don't like so much. That's why I left him right outside my top 10.
Mm-hmm. Well, I see a world where he could finish as like going right back to where he's like left off last season. I also see a world where they rely a lot on the run game, and whenever Chubb comes back, Njoku kind of fades away, and he's kind of put in that pass blocking position or run blocking position. So yeah, I see a world where that's a possibility. But yeah, I feel like with the value of him going that late in the rounds, like I feel like you could kind of take a shot on him, and you could if like you're in a more shallow league, you could even have him as your tight end too. Take one of the other top guys that we have on our list, but yeah,
that's a good point. I just to give you all an idea, I actually did a mock draft right before we came onto here to see where these guys are being placed, and he went at the bottom of the 9th round is where Njoku went.
That is crazy.
Yeah, that's pretty far down.
Yeah, good value there. So as we go along, I'll try to find where these guys are picking these rounds so we can try to get an idea of what value they could have.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, then, without further ado, our number 9 guy is Evan Engram at number 9. He is the number 9 guy. Evan Engram had his best season ever last year, which was kind of surprising. It kind of shocked a lot of people. He finished as a tight end too.
Yeah.
That's crazy. This guy, he's 29 years old. He's with the Jaguars. I had him at 10, at the 10 spot. We had you guys put him a little higher, I think. And to me, I'm more worried about Evan Ingram's usage going forward with the Jaguars offense. I'm just kind of concerned about the Jaguars offense going forward. That's why I didn't have him as high. But I do see a world where Evan Engram is just put in that same position where he gets targeted like crazy because he got so many targets last year. He got 143 targets and 114 catches last year, which is insane.
That's crazy.
And so like this guy, like he's going to be, I feel like he might as well be like the first option over there. Like he does everything right with this team. They're going to have to pass the ball, or they're going to have to pass the ball through somebody. Like it's Christian Kirk, it's maybe Brian Thomas Jr. over there, but it's also Evan Engram. And so Evan Engram, the touchdowns weren't always there, but this guy, he's just exploding with talent, and like he's got all the things that he needs to go right back to that number 2 spot. And this guy is also he's also one of the later tight ends as well. He's going around the 6th round, and he has that chance to, like, if the touchdowns start to come, he can be one of those guys that can be like the number 1 guy.
Yeah. So I'm not going to say he's going to have a better season than last year, because it's kind of hard to beat number 2. You got to be number 1. But I think him and Kirk, like, that's all Trevor Lawrence has, really. And then mostly if he can really just get in the red zone, he'll be good. They mainly just ran into ETN or did little slants and everything, but I think he'll be top 3. That's what I'm going to predict.
Top 3.
And I had him, I think, number 6 on mine.
Yeah.
I had him pretty high.
Yeah.
Wow. So you have him. That's pretty high. He definitely is a player who he's had an interesting career.
Yeah, he has, for sure.
Whenever he was with the Giants, he didn't do nothing.
No, he did not.
Well, he had a really good first season. Like, I remember with the Giants, he had a really good first season. But, yeah, that was a long time. That was forever ago, it seems like.
I'm curious to know. Let's take a look here. So he had Trevor Lawrence last season, had 564 attempts and 370 completions. And if I remember correctly, did he have 140 attempts to Evan Engram and 114 of those were completed? Is that what you said?
143 targets and then 114
okay.
catches.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's getting a very large share. That's almost like Travis Kelce-esque for the percentage that he is providing him there. So, a little old, 29 is sort of that age where I think Kelce's breaking the mold, but around that age of 29 to 31 is when guys start to hit their cliff of the production sorts to fall off. But I think he's still in for another great season. They did draft Brian Thomas Jr. out of LSU. He is a red zone monster. At LSU, I think he ended with like 14 touchdowns or something in his last season. So that he's a red zone threat against what Evan Ingram has provided. But again, Derek, you already spoke on this. The target share and catches per game that he receives makes his floor very safe, especially if you're in PPR leagues. Mm-hmm. If you're in non-PPR or half PPR, it does drop him down a little bit because I think his red zone percentage will take a hit. But overall, I still think he's a safer floor than what you're getting on Njoku. To me, it's worth the 3-round upgrade. That's just me personally. I like to draft very safe, and to me, he's a safe play.
Oh yeah, he's one of the safest that you can get. To be honest, in my opinion, he's one of the safest tight ends that you can get for sure. I just feel like he does everything so consistently. He's one of those consistent guys that's going to get you around 7 to 8 catches every single week. So yeah, I mean, I for sure like he's one of those guys that I think could be right back where he left off last year, and I see a world where he could finish as a top 5 tight end again. So yeah, I do think he's worth the pick at round 6 as well. So, all right. Well, enough about Evan Ingram. We'll talk about our number 8 guy, which is George Kittle.
Let me start off with this. Love-hate relationship with George Kittle, man. I tell you what. He reminds me of, and it's going to sound really weird if y'all haven't drafted him before, but he reminds me of a Tyler Lockett, because Tyler Lockett will have games where he's booming and he'll be like wide receiver 2, 1. But when he has a bad game, oh, brother, he stinks. Same thing with George Kittle.
Yeah.
I took him last year in a league, and it's just, and he doesn't really get that many opportunities because he's more of a blocker tight end.
Yeah.
And so, like, he gets about 3 passes, but, like, let me take it back to, what game was it? Jacksonville, week 10. 3 receptions, 4 targets, 116 yards. Now let me go back to week 12 against Seattle. He had 3 catches, 19 yards. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing about George Kittle. Like, he's so good, and like he's one of those guys that could be like a Travis Kelce or like a Mark Andrews. Like, if he was put in that role,
he could be better.
He could be better, and he's still. I mean, he's 30 years old, but he's one of those guys that could be. Like, he makes such incredible catches. Like, I'll see some of his catches, and they're like one-handers behind his back and over his shoulder. It's just like he's like another receiver out there. He does everything right, and he's such a great personality too. Like, he's on receiver, and he's just one of the funniest guys on there, and it's great to see him on there. But yeah, they run everything through Christian McCaffrey over there, though. Like, that's one of the big problems.
It's a blessing and a curse.
I mean, McCaffrey's going to get a lot of the stuff out there, but if George Kittle is such a good pass blocker, why not use him as that? So, I mean,
my thing is, like, whenever he's in your lineup, and he's like the last player on your team, can make or break. I mean, don't think that you could win, because, man, it's just. But maybe if Ayuk, gets traded, maybe that opens up. I mean, we'll see.
That's true.
I don't know too much about that, but
we haven't heard anything.
Love-hate relationship with the guy.
Yeah, I think Luis put it pretty perfect the other day whenever he said he's consistently inconsistent.
Literally, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yes.
He'll have games that are like he'll get you 30 points, and then he'll have games where he'll get you 4.
Dude, he had. Let me pull it up. Ooh.
It's like a rocky road with him.
He had 2 games where he got 1.2. 1 point from a tight end. I mean, hell, I'm watching from my couch, and I bet I can get more points than him. Probably not. I'll probably get trucked, but
you get negative points.
Yeah,
you get negative points.
Yeah, I put him on here just sort of as a like giving him his flowers. I have never been a Kittle owner. He's one of those players that maybe this is just me when it comes to fantasy football, but there are players that have been good for years, and for the life of me, I just can't get around drafting them. Kittle's one of those guys, and I'm the same way with like Derrick Henry. There are just certain players that defy the odds and continue to just be great, and I don't go anywhere near them. Because the tight end position is such a scarce position for production, I threw him on here because you can't deny how good he is. But I don't think, like, if he was staring me in the face and it's round 8, round 9, I still don't think I'm taking him.
Yeah.
Only because every single person to ever own Kittle has had the exact same sentiment that I've heard. Luis, Dabs, you ask anybody, it's, yeah, I really don't like owning him. He's really good when he's on, but he's super inconsistent. And that is not a guy I want on mine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember whenever I had him like 2 years ago in our keeper league.
I had him last year, and I think I took him in the 2nd round. Biggest mistake.
Yeah, I had him a couple of years ago, and I remember like there were times where like he would win me weeks. Like he would just win me the week. And there were times where I just needed like maybe like 10 points, and I would lose because he didn't get anywhere near it.
So it's hard. Again, this is a really tough position to calculate. Last season, he was the 5th most consistent tight end of all tight ends in the league. So as frustrating as he is to own, that shows how hard this position was last season to get right.
Mm-hmm.
The people above him were Laporta, Evan Ingram, Travis Kelce, and TJ Hawkinson. He was averaging 10 points per game, 5th in consistency rankings. So it's just really hard to get these guys right. And that's why I said I'm going to give him his flowers, but man, it's not a roller coaster I want to go on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, Kittle, you can get him around the 7th round.
Would you take the risk?
I think I would, actually. I think I would take the risk with him in the 7th round.
And
because
as your tight end 1?
As my tight end 1.
Oof.
I think I would, and it's only because at the 7th round, I feel like I have all of my guys already. Like most of my starting squad, including a flex.
Yeah.
And so if I'm taking Kittle that late, I think it could be worth the pick at 7. If it's like if it's like a normal traditional PPR league, whatever. So yeah, I think he's one of those guys that I don't mind taking a risk on, and I don't mind getting that late in the rounds, especially if he's around 7 or 8. Like I think I'd take him all day. So even with all the bad trash talking that we're talking about him, I think I would take him around that time.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on to our number 7 guy, and that is going to be Kyle Pitts. So Kyle Pitts, this is kind of an oddball kind of guy, and I've never been high on this guy ever. And like he's one of those guys that I feel like he should have shown it to us these last 2 years, but I feel like he could be one of those guys this year. David, you're shaking your head right now.
I am not. I mean, the criticism that he gets is he doesn't have a good QB, yada, yada, yada. Which I understand, but I'm not falling for the hype again. Every year, I think that he's going to do better. You know, he has a game where he gets a touchdown and you think, oh, bleep that out, Derek.
That's
my bad. And then he's just like, and then he goes back to his old ways and it's just like, dude, like, what are we doing? I mean, with Kirk Cousins, major upgrade compared to Riddler and all the other QBs he had, but I'm not falling for the trap, bro. Y'all can gladly have him.
I think he gets a bad rap, and I feel for the guy because he's only 23 years old. He's only 23 years old still. And I feel like he's like the people that are like that have done it already, like Kincaid and Laporta, they're older than him. And even though they were rookies last year, they're still older than him. Kyle Pitts joined the league whenever he was 21. And so like I feel like he gets such a bad rap. And I think this is probably one of the years where he can prove it. Now that he has a quarterback, now that he has like somebody that can throw him the ball consistently, a new offensive scheme, new offensive coordinator, new everything over there pretty much with Bijan over there, keeping like with the defenders keeping an eye on Bijan and whatever. I think this could be a year where he could go off, and he's going around the 6th round.
Is he really?
Yeah, he's going around the 6th round, and that's kind of high to me, in my opinion. I feel like that's
so he's going higher than Kittle.
He's going higher than Kittle, and I think it's just because a lot of people think that he can have a pretty breakout year.
This is the season. If he were to do it, we sort of talked about this with JK. I think he's in a similar boat where a lot of people are still just riding the hype train of what he could be and how high he was drafted. Now, here's the thing about where he stands, and I think why he's getting a lot of hype. It's all on Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins last season produced TJ Hawkinson, who was 4th among the consistency rankings. He produced 11.4 points per game, which was actually 2nd in the entire league behind Sam Laporta. So while he wasn't the most consistent, he was 4th in consistency rankings, 2nd in points before his injury. That's what you can expect or hope to expect, and that's why he's going so high. People are saying, okay, looking back statistically, Kirk produces good tight ends, and hopefully there's a good chance he'll do it again here with Pitts. So last season he was 14th in consistency and only 6.5 points per game. So you are talking about you're doing a lot of projecting here.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, like to your point, Colton, I feel like it is this is the year that he should do it, and if he doesn't, then everything is like he's gonna be tanked. Like there's no way like he could be drafted like this high again.
No, again, unless they did like okay, the only thing you could say is all right. Kirk Cousins was coming off the Achilles. He was 36 going on to 37. We made a mistake. We're going to start Penix. Then people may go, dang it, rope me back in. They got a 26-year-old quarterback who's coming in, has a rocket arm, and is going to spread this ball around. Give me another year of Kyle Pitts. Maybe that happens. But again, heavy projecting is what a lot of people are doing right now. You hope he can live up to the hype, but to Dav's point, I mean, you know, there are other guys you can get significantly lower. I do have him high in my rankings because I am buying into the hype based off what I've seen Kirk do with other guys. But you know, hey, that's all part of fantasy football. You make your gambles.
Yeah, you got to make your gambles somewhere. I mean, I feel like somebody like Kyle Pitts though. He's always like got our hopes up. Like every single season, it seems like we're always talking about Kyle Pitts like high in the rankings. I've never been really in on him until this year. Like I feel like this is probably the year that he has something to prove, and he should have it. So,
so to my point though, what would be a good season for Kyle Pitts? What do you think? Like, because last year he had 53 receptions, 667 yards. So if he gets to 800, would that be, I mean, we don't really know where the ceiling is. We just want him to do good, but also what is good for Kyle Pitts?
I would love for him to hit 1,000, but I don't think that's possible. I would think more reasonable if he had like somewhere in the 900s, I think I would be happy. Like that wouldn't be such a bad thing, I guess. I know everybody's buying into the hype because everybody's buying into the hype for the Falcons offense. They should be elite. Like they should. They have everything to succeed this year.
Like Bijan's going 2 in most drafts.
Yeah, Bijan's
if not 1.
Yeah, Bijan's high in the rankings. Drake London's going around where Olave and Garrett Wilson are going. It's like this offense has everything that it needs to succeed, and they're gonna be under a lot of pressure. Honestly, like it's gonna be all on them to prove to the world that they can do it. So I think a world where Kyle Pitts finishes as maybe the number 8 tight end, I think we would be happy. So
here's what I have him as. Okay, so I keep going back to consistency because in fantasy football, to me, it's the most important factor when you're drafting players. How consistent are they going to be for you on a week-to-week basis? We've talked about the top guys already and sort of where they sit. When you're projecting out a guy like Kyle Pitts, finishing 14th last season, points per game was 6.5. You look at the other top guys who had a really good season last year, Laporta, Ingram, Kelsey, Hawkinson, Kittle, Hawkinson before the injury, and Mark Andrews before his injuries. He had some injury woes towards the end of the year. All of those guys finished with 10 points per game average at the end of their year. So that's kind of what I look at for Kyle Pitts is, okay, you're being drafted as elite. You're being looked at as elite. You now have a quarterback who produced an elite tight end, even as recent as last year before the injury. You need to be at hopefully a consistency rating amongst the top 7 and averaging 10 points per game. If he can do that, that's a big win in Kyle Pitts land for me. If it's 9 points per game, that's like my floor, I think, is where, because that's when you start getting into guys like David Njoku, who were like, okay, that's really good for him, you know? Right. But if you're averaging 8, that's middle of the pack. You're talking Cole Kmet, Jake Ferguson. I mean, heck, even Taysom Hill finished with 7.5 last year. So to be in that upper echelon, the elite of the elite guys, he has to have 10 points per game. That's where he needs to be this year.
Right.
If it's not that, to me, that's when you're looking at like, dang, okay, I overdrafted.
I get that. I get that logic. That makes sense. Yeah. Well, I mean, so to you guys, is he worth the round 6 pick?
No.
Oh, I know for you, yeah.
I don't. But even then, like even then, I don't think I would take him with a 6th round pick.
What would you take him? If you had to pick,
if I had, yeah. I mean 8
in the 8th round.
I think I would wait 2 more rounds and see.
Yeah, because you're missing.
It's tough.
Because you're banking on Kirk Cousins to make him a superstar.
Right.
That's what you're really banking on.
For sure. So, and you have to hope that the coach has figured it out as well, that the new coach they put in is going to run a correct system. A lot of hoping and wishing there, but here are the guys going around that pick. Let me know who you'd rather have over Kyle Pitts right now. Alvin Kamara, you taking him?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll take Kamara.
Yes. I would.
We'll do yes, no's. Y'all just let me know. I'll run them off rather fast. Yeah. Amari Cooper.
No, I'll take Kyle Pitts.
Yes. I would take this.
Okay. Aaron Jones.
I'll take Kyle Pitts all day.
All right. Devs?
Yeah.
Yeah to what?
Yeah, I would take him. I would take Aaron Jones.
You would take Aaron Jones? Okay.
You take him over? Okay. Zamir White.
Gosh. Oh,
I would take Pitts.
Yeah, I'll take Pitts there.
Yeah, Pitts.
Okay. Devontae Smith.
Oh, I'll take Devontae Smith.
Devontae.
Sure.
All right, and then I'll give one more. Malik Neighbors.
I'll take Neighbors.
See, and you're banking on. Yeah. I mean, I think they're pretty. I don't want to say even, but like once again, you're banking on
similar situations.
Yeah, similar.
But Neighbors is the automatic number 1 over there.
He is. He's going to get significant target share.
Drake London.
I think I would.
The one.
I would go with Pitts.
You would go with Pitts over Neighbors?
I would.
Dang.
Really? Wow, okay.
So there you go. I mean, that's you're talking about a 50% of guys in that round who you take over him, depending on how your rounds fall. So, when you're looking at the group, it's not instant. Oh, I don't know if I can get him 2 rounds later. Yeah, if totally, if you can get him 2 rounds later, then you do it. But where he is where he is, and where he is around guys who you're saying 50%. Maybe I would, maybe I wouldn't. So I would lean towards taking the tight end, given how desperate everybody was for a tight end last year. That was probably the hardest position last season to get consistent play at. And you're talking about a significant discount compared to guys like, McBride and Andrews and Kelsey and Laporta, who are going in these really high end rounds. You're basically getting a 2 to 3 round discount on a potential elite talent. So I'm taking the risk and the upside play.
I get that. That's solid. That was a good high low candidate right there. Okay, let's move on to our number 6 guy, which is Jake Ferguson, actually. Jake Ferguson was one of the Cowboys' highest. He was one of the highest red zone targets.
Not just for the Cowboys in NFL.
Or in the NFL, right?
He was third. I think it was Tyreek won. Can't forget who was second, and he was third.
Wow. That's awesome. And like it makes sense. I mean, he's the number 2 basically out of CeeDee Lamb. Like I feel like he's over Brandon Cooks.
100%.
And so yeah, I feel like he's one of those guys that's gonna, and like people kind of underestimate Jake Ferguson. He's kind of one of the lower guys that's looked at, and he's in the later rounds for sure. But yeah, after they got rid of Dalton Schultz, this guy's kind of been he's kind of been the guy over there, and he's extremely healthy. That's something that you love to see. He's always been in the games. So yeah, I mean he's looking good in camp already. He's one of those guys that can do it all, and he's 25 years old, which is something that you love to see. Yeah, his snap percentage was around like 70s, which is something that's really great. So I think the Cowboys finally are probably settling down with somebody kind of like in that Jason Witten role where the like Cowboys used to have, so
like a security blanket.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I think Jake Ferguson is one of those guys that can. He's one of those guys that I think could win you your league, because you could get him so late in the rounds that a lot of people forget that he's so good in the red zone. And I think just based on touchdowns alone, he could win you your week. If he gets like 2 touchdowns, I think in the last game of the season where they lost to the Packers, he got like 2 touchdowns, which is amazing.
Yeah. So, I think even last year you could get him off the waivers.
Yeah, he was picked up off the waivers in our keeper league, I think.
Now to get him at that, I mean.
Yeah, I mean he's obviously I have him as I think 6 in my rankings. I am really high on him this upcoming season. There have been a lot of targets that are now available in Dallas. When you look at the guys who walked away and the guys who stayed around, the guys who they decided to go and get, I mean, they got jobbers. They didn't get anybody who you look at and you're like, man, that guy's going to fight for some targets now. It's like, no, I mean, overall, they brought in Zeke. No one's worried about Zeke's 3.1 yards per carry. He's never been a passing back. If anything, it actually helps Ferguson because you basically have a 6th blocker.
Yeah.
He puts on a few more pounds. He's your new center. So, overall, Brandon Cooks, he's going to be getting his for sure. But I think Dak has developed a really strong relationship with him. Last season, he was already 8th in consistency metrics. So he was already sort of meeting into that upper echelon of where you're looking to be at. And now he has a good rapport with the quarterback. They're having a whole offseason together with him being one of the primary weapons. I think he could actually finish as the 2nd highest total targets on the team this year. To get him in the 9th round, which is where he was going in this mock draft that I did, to me, he has significantly higher upside than a guy like David Njoku because of the potential target share he could get on that team. So, again, I really do think he has a solid chance to finish with the 2nd highest targets of anyone else on this team right now.
Yeah, I totally agree. I would at the number in the 9th round, I feel like I probably, because David Njoku is going around the 9th and 8th as well. I feel like I'd be more comfortable taking Njoku, but I do see where Jake Ferguson could win you your league. I mean, he's one of those guys that I feel like he could perform at such a high level on a high level offense already, because that Dallas offense, they're gonna sling it around. Like, they're a pass first offense already, and they are going to air out the ball. Dak Prescott's gonna chug it all over the place. And Jake Ferguson's gonna be he's gonna be on the receiving end of that. And I think he's one of those guys that people undervalue and underestimate how well he could actually be. So yeah, I have high hopes for him as well. For Dynasty, he's gold, honestly. Like, he's 25 years old. He's like so young. and he's already like touted as like one of these guys that is getting the rock as the number 2 tight end. So he's fantasy gold for Dynasty. But yeah, I would take him in the 9th round, no doubt, no question about it. All right, let's move on to our number 5 guy, which is Dalton Kincaid. So here we go. Here we go into these top 5 guys, and Dalton Kincaid cracks the number 5 spot, and I have him a lot higher. Dalton Kincaid, here's the thing. I understand why people are kind of getting a little cautious with Dalton Kincaid. I mean, they do have Dawson Knox still over there. He's the only target really that's going to be consistent over there with the Buffalo Bills. The problem with the Bills is that I'm actually starting to worry about their offense. I think that they really need a alpha wide receiver, and I don't think any of the rookies and any of the people that they signed over there are going to be the alpha wide receiver. Dalton Kincaid, I feel like he could be an alpha receiver, but he's a tight end. Like, you got to think of, I'm thinking about it like that. Like, he's a tight end. He's like somebody that needs to do other things on the field rather than just catch balls. So I feel like Kincaid, he's going to be really good this year because of the quarterback play and because of that offense. It's high caliber already. I just feel like I'm cooling off on Dalton Kincaid a little bit. But I do still see his upside. I think he's going to be a really good player, especially now that Diggs is gone and Gabe Davis is gone. So, David, you were like really low on Kincaid.
Yeah, I had him.
You had 10. Him at 10.
Yeah. I mean, the players that we talked, me personally, I think they're better. Mm-hmm. He really didn't do much last season. I think this year, kind of like a Kyle Pitts situation, it's kind of a prove it.
For sure.
It's literally just going to be him and James Cook running the offense. Mm-hmm. Of course, you're going to have Coleman. You know, he's looking real good in training camp. Let's hope that can produce to the actual field. I'm not too worried about Dawson Knox and him splitting carries. I think Kincaid is the superior tight end 1. And also, like, whenever they get into postseason, that's when he really shines. Mm-hmm. He had more catches than Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs throughout the whole postseason that they were there. So, I mean, him and Allen's connection is really good, but, you know, I like the other guys that we talked about better. Just my opinion, though.
Yeah. And I will say, like, whenever Knox wasn't on the field, that's whenever Kincaid really showed out. Whenever he wasn't splitting carries with Knox. And I remember those games, like, because I had picked him up off of waivers last year for that reason. And he exploded. He exploded when Dawson Knox wasn't on the field. But whenever Dawson Knox came back, he kind of came down to earth a little bit more. So, I mean, it's just something to kind of monitor a little bit. I feel like this Bills offense is kind of a mystery to me right now. Like, I don't really know what they're going to produce this year at all. Like, I know Josh Allen's going to be great. I know James Cook is going to be great. Apart from them, I don't know where to look. So,
yeah, they're in a tricky spot.
Yeah.
And also with, like, him, I mean, he only had 2 touchdowns last season. So, I mean, it's only up from there, really. He only had 2.
Yeah.
Throughout the whole season, so.
That's crazy. I didn't realize it was only 2.
Yeah.
I wouldn't worry so much about this, y'all. He had 91 targets last season, which I think we all see he could have room for improvement. Even with that happening, between Diggs and Gabe Davis leaving, there are now 241 targets vacated.
Golly.
I don't think that there's any tight end who benefited more from a offseason than Kincaid did. Even if Dawson Knox does see an uptick in his volume and production from what he had last season, which was he had 36 targets compared to Kincaid's 91. Even if he goes to 60 targets, I think that means Kincaid goes to 140. I don't see a world where he doesn't get the production of these other elite tight ends, at least he's going to receive the volume of these other elite tight ends. And he has shown that with that higher production, he can definitely show and hold his own. So I do understand the knock against him a little bit, and this offense is changed so much. So there's really no true telling on how it's going to look when you vacate 241 targets. You lose your wide receiver 1 and your wide receiver 2. There's a case to be made that Keon Coleman could come in and eat up a lot of those targets as a rookie. There's a case to be made that they could rely more on the run game with James Cook and take it out of Josh Allen's hands a little more than what has happened in previous seasons. But when this guy received high target volume, he was finishing consistently in the top 10. That was week 7, week 8, week 10, week 11, and week 17 and 18. When all of those times he received around 6 to 9 targets, somewhere in that ballpark, and he was finishing in the top 10. So I don't see a world where he doesn't get that sort of target share on a weekly basis now, just off the sheer amount of volume that has been freed up by these guys leaving.
Yeah.
That's why I like his upside.
I agree with that as well. And that's one of the reasons why I have him so high. It kind of reminds me of the way Patrick Mahomes is running his offense a little bit. So he has a lot of these receivers that are like lower tier guys, but Travis Kelce's like the standout guy. And so we're hoping that Kincaid will kind of blossom into that Travis Kelce type of role where he can get his like massive influx in targets. So, I mean, we'll just see we have to see how this shakes out. Like, this is the year for him to break out for sure.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, then let's move on to our number 4 guy, and that will be Mark Andrews. Whenever Mark Andrews is fully healthy, he is unstoppable. Like, he is one of those guys that can win you your league for sure. And I honestly think he's like really discounted this year. And he's one of those guys that can be like, he could win you a league, basically. And he's got a really good rapport with Lamar Jackson. He's always had that rapport with Lamar Jackson. I mean, he's one of those guys that can dominate in the red zone. He's a target monster as well. But you would have to pay a little bit of a price for him, as well as Kincaid. We didn't really talk about Kincaid's where he was being drafted, but he was being drafted around the 5th round, 6th round, around there, I think. Mark Andrews is being drafted
top of the 5th round.
Yeah, top of the 5th round. Mark Andrews is being drafted around the 4th round, so you would have to spend up a little bit more for Mark Andrews, and which is kind of, once we get into these top 5 guys, you're gonna have to spend a little bit more in ADP to get these guys. So yeah, Mark Andrews is one of those guys that I feel like he could be like a Travis Kelce he could have a Travis Kelce type of season. And he's only 28 years old, so he's still got plenty left in the tank. Rapport with Lamar Jackson's there. So yeah, I think he's one of those guys that can show out for your team.
I think I had him. Where did I have him? I had him number 4. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of banking what you said, Derek. I mean, Lamar Jackson loves him in the red zone.
Mm-hmm.
Led the team last year in red zone attempts, and he only played 10 games.
Yeah.
And in those 10 games, he averaged like 13. I think it's 13.4 points per game. I mean, that's a tight end.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta love that. He's averaging more than wide receivers. Mm-hmm. The biggest factor is every year his health.
Yeah.
So you don't know what you're getting. I mean, if you do draft him that high, I mean, you kind of got to get I would say another tight end in the next round, if not the 2 rounds from there, because you got to get a good tight end because you don't know what you're going to get out of him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. His health is probably the most concerning factor with him. But whenever he's healthy, he's unstoppable. I mean, I think the last 2 years he's been injury plagued, right? He only played, let me see, he only played 11 games last year, 10 games last year.
Last year was rough. 2022 was a good season for him. He only missed the week 9 and week 18. I think week 18 was by design because they were making a push into the postseason. Okay. So really, he only missed 1 week in 2022. Mm-hmm. Well, and same for 2021. He didn't miss a single game in 2021. Gotcha, so the 2023 season was a tough year for him. He couldn't really ever get settled. He missed week 1, and then he missed a big chunk of the season. I own Andrews in 2 of my leagues already, and I'll try to get as many shares as possible because I do think I almost had him as my tight end 2 in this list. Mm-hmm. I dropped him down because of the health concerns, but I do think he is in the prime age of when tight ends start to find, that okay, I'm going to be really good for the next few seasons. Right. And that team is another team where the target share goes to the tight end. And we just talked about this with Kelsey and how good it is when you have a guy who can take over an offense like that. He is definitely in that boat. So I would honestly put him as my 2 if he had a clean bill of health going into this year. And hopefully he cleaned up the problems that he was having last season. But I'm a huge Andrews truther. I think he's going to have a really awesome season. And I'll be picking up as many shares as possible, even at the 4th round value. I think it's worth it. I think he is worth it.
So who's he going around, Colton? Like where is he going around in the
draft? In the draft, he went at the 408. So guys around him were Kenneth Walker, Trey McBride, Cooper Kupp, Jalen Hurts, Deebo Samuel, Nico Collins. Those were, and then at the top of because it was sort of the bottom of the 4th. So going into the top of the 5th, it was Dalton Kincaid, DK Metcalf, Jalen Waddle. So he's sort of around that range.
I think honestly,
so you're obviously taking him over.
I would take him over most of those guys. I feel like I think the only exception is probably Trey McBride. I think I would take Trey McBride. That's it. I would take Mark Andrews.
Trey McBride went 3 places ahead. So it worked out exactly how kind of what we're saying, and I think it's gonna line up very close with what we have as our 3rd ranked guy. But yeah, if he gets to me in the 4th, and I'm looking at these guys, and I'm like, okay, who's gonna be the highest upside out of these guys, and who has the best target share? I think Andrews is the answer to both of those, and I'd be taking him
for sure. Well, yeah. I mean, that leads us kind of into our next guy, which is going to be Trey McBride as the number 3 overall tight end. I mean, there's nothing much to say about him, really. I mean, he's going into his 3rd year, and he's finally blossoming. Like he's finally coming into his own. Like we knew that he was drafted to be this type of player, but he hadn't really showed it until last year, finally. And he's one of those guys to me that where I think Kyle Pitts should be, like in my opinion. He's 24 years old. He's still got so much more to prove. I think in terms of where he stands in the Arizona Cardinals offense, I think he's the number 2 target. Marvin Harrison is going to be the number 1, obviously. The only reason why I feel like I have to rank him above Andrews and like some of the guys that are already like number 1 in their receiving positions is because of how they utilized him in that offense. I know that this year they finally brought in Marvin Harrison, but I still feel like they could utilize him really effectively with Marvin Harrison, and they will use him in the red zone a lot as well. I think Marvin Harrison is kind of going to be that home run hitter guy, like that sort of Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson type of guy. But I think McBride can probably be that TJ Hawkinson type of role, where he's going to be that easily number 2 guy where he's very consistent. And that's what you want on your team. Like that's what you want. And that's why we have him so high in the rankings. So.
Yeah, I think the big thing here is Kyler Murray. If you look at the splits from the first 8 games versus the last 10 games, when Murray comes back, it is, I mean, night and day. Cinderella pumpkin versus carriage. It's honestly insane the kind of splits these guys that they have together. So Derek makes a great point. He's going to be the second best option of that team. But again, this is another team that has insane target vacancy right now. And I think he has nowhere to climb but up, still only 24 years old. And when you look at the consistency metrics, as soon as week 10 hits, he just starts to find it. Very, very consistent. It was 17 points, and then a little bit of a dip with 6.8, then 9, 18, 15.2. Then week 17 and 18 were low at 6 and 7, and then 10.8. So, hopefully he can clean that up, become a little more consistent. But Murray clearly has a favorite target with him, and he was making it work. So, green grass is ahead for McBride, especially with him not having the weight totally put on him. Marvin Harrison is a Ferrari, and people are going to look.
No, for
this
sure.
Guy is going to attract major attention. He's going to get double covered. People are going to treat him as if he is Justin Jefferson from day one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's going to be a play where he doesn't have, we're going to stop Marvin Harrison Jr. Do not let him get open. And when you have to do that, you're leaving the other side of the field or the middle of the field open for a guy like McBride to operate and get those dirty yards and find ways to work within the soft spots in coverage, especially if they're playing cover 2 man coverage. He'll really find ways to work into that. So, yeah, I love McBride. I'm in my dynasty league, not the one that Derek and I are in together. I'm in 2 dynasty leagues. And in my dynasty league, I was fortunate enough to get Andrews and McBride. So I'm sitting fat and happy right now.
God.
I don't have to worry about this position for many years. So yeah, he's been a guy I've been high on since last year, and I'm loving the future potential of him with this new offense.
Yeah, one thing that stands out to me is that he kind of started excelling when his snap percentage went up. Like you saw in the first 6-7 games, his snap percentage was averaging below 50%. But once he started getting over that 50%, which is around the time where Hollywood Brown got injured as well, he started excelling. He started to show up, and he was the tight end 2, 3, 7, 2, 5, 5. He's one of those guys that was consistently putting up numbers, and that's something that you definitely want. So, all right. Let's move on to our number 2 guy, and that's going to be Travis Kelce. Old man reliable Travis Kelce.
Isn't he dating Taylor Swift?
Oh, yeah, Taylor Swift's
boyfriend?
Yeah, Taylor Swift's boyfriend.
Who's that?
I didn't know he played football.
His name is Travis Kelce. He's on the Kansas City Chiefs.
Is he good?
Dang, that's crazy.
He's all right.
Oh, he's that podcaster, right?
Oh, yeah, he's that other podcaster.
Yeah, I know his brother played football. I didn't know what he did.
Yeah.
I just thought he was on there because he was Taylor Swift's boyfriend. That's crazy.
Yeah. Taylor Swift made him famous on Chiefs.
Yeah, that's wild.
Now you're going to have all the Swifties coming after you. After y'all.
Oh, man. Yeah, Travis Kelce got a full resume of since 2013. Yeah, this guy's been in the league forever. 34 years old, but we still have him as our tight end 2. I mean, he just got a new deal. He's going to still play. He's going to keep playing. I mean, I don't understand what's going to stop him. He's one of those guys that's just going to play till he's 40. Yeah. I mean,
it does seem that way. 11 years in the league. I mean, the thing is, the team that he's on, obviously with Mahomes, it doesn't get any better, but really where I think he started to find his success and become like the Kelce that we all know is when Andy Reid came on board and allowed him to have that sort of free-flowing play that he does. He is not a type of guy who, all right, I'm going to run this route. I'm going to find success. I'm going to beat a guy. What he's really good at is finding those soft spots in coverage and saying, okay, you're sort of floating here. You're playing zone. I'm just going to be over here. No worries. And then boom, it's a 15, 20-yard gain.
Yeah.
He's so efficient when it comes to just finding those soft spots. And it's free-flowing routes. There's nothing that he and Mahomes are doing except for playing backyard football. And it's so fun to watch.
For sure.
So 34, 36, 40, as long as he's in the league, and those two are together, he earns the respect of being in that top two.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you kind of have to. I mean, every year he just proves it. Yeah. You know, people are saying, you know, his snaps are going to go down because of they drafted Xavier Worthy, but then you have Rashee Rice. You don't know about him. You have Hollywood and old Hollywood Brown. I mean, and also you can get him at a discount. You can get him in the 3rd round. Yeah. I remember last year he was like top 10, first round. To get him in the 3rd round, I mean, if I could get him at that, I mean, hell yeah, I'm going to take it. Why wouldn't you?
Heck yeah.
You know, you have a solid tight end who's going to get you at least, I would say even 15 points a game, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think this year is like the best year to get him. I think like every other year he's been like 7th overall, 8th overall around that time. And which is understandable. Like he's one of the greatest receivers that's a tight end. And like once you have that position filled, you're good. You don't have to worry about that position anymore. But I think this year with Mahomes, even like Mahomes is going later than Josh Allen, and some people are drafting like Mahomes as the 3rd overall quarterback, which is crazy to me. But I think with where you can get Travis Kelce this year alone, it makes it so worth it. And like the way he runs his routes, to your point, Colton, I feel like the way he runs his routes reminded me a lot of how Puka Nacua ran his routes last year, where he just found those soft spots and he kind of knew exactly where to go to get to those soft spots. And I think he's one of those guys that just knows the game so well that he just like it's just natural to him. So yeah, I think this is another year for him to continue to excel and to be that top tier tight end.
Yeah, and what's great about that style of play, Derek, to your point, is it really does suit an old man's game because there's no like the thing that is so good about that and what's so great for Mahomes is he can just sort of look for him rather than saying I have to wait for him to make a break into this spot and my coverage has to be, you know, or my offensive line has to hold up for X amount of seconds for Kelce to make his break to here. He's just, you know, playing ball. Yeah. And that suits an old man who needs a little more time to get to those routes. You know, like a McBride is literally 10 years younger. He's just going to get to those spots a little faster. So when you're allowing a guy to just sort of have that free flow, it doesn't put as much pressure on him, on his body to try to make those, you know, tougher cuts, harder runs. He can just work in the coverage. And that's going to hopefully keep him healthier. He'll have a great season. And to David's points, get a lot of freaking targets doing so.
Yeah, he reminds me a lot of like the way Tyler Lockett plays, where Tyler Lockett just doesn't.
Oh, such a great comp.
He doesn't get injured that much because of the way he plays. And he slides a lot. He just like that's the way to play the game. You don't have to go and like break your brain just to get a couple of yards. I mean.
Yes. It's just and the best point behind like all of this is like they did get a lot more talent around him. So while I don't think it's going to affect his target share, it's definitely going to affect what the defense has to do to cover a speedster like Worthy, a route technician like Rashee Rice. As long as the suspension, you know, we'll figure out what happens there. But when he comes back, you have to worry about a guy who's a route technician and tactician for sure. And then a freaking bruiser in the backfield in Isaiah Pacheco, who's just going to lay out your linebackers anytime he touches, you know, Mother Earth. So that team, man, this may be the most dangerous they've been in a long time, and they could three-peat. So with Travis Kelce getting a ridiculous workload.
Yeah.
I wonder who's number one, dude.
Well, we'll get to it. Let's talk about our number one guy. Yeah. Our number one, top of our list, is going to be Sam Laporta. He is the reigning king at number one, finished as the number one tight end last year in his rookie season, which is insane. Like, there's never been a tight end in their rookie season that I can think of that has finished as the number one tight end.
No.
Can you think of any? I can't think of any other tight end that's ever finished as the number one tight end on the rookie season. That's insane to me. 23 years old. This guy,
maybe Gronk.
I don't remember.
I was going to say that, but I don't think he played that much as a rookie.
No, I don't remember. I don't. Yeah, I don't. That was so long ago. I have no idea.
No, not even. Yeah, he had 10 touchdowns, but only 546 yards, 42 catches.
Yeah, so him and Gronk had the same touchdowns, just
significantly less yardage for
That's
Gronk.
Insane.
That's crazy.
Well, yeah, Sam Laporta, he was an instant, just dominant workhorse in the NFL. I mean, from the start of the season, he was looking at 80% snap counts. So, I mean, this is a guy that he's going to prove it. Like, he's going to continue to work and continue to dominate in this really high-end offense with the Lions. I mean, Jared Goff loves his tight end over there. I mean, he's one of those guys that can dominate at home. And so Sam Laporta is going to benefit from it. Apart from Amon-Ra St. Brown, like, he's going to be the number 2 target out there. So,
can I play devil's advocate though? The reason, I mean, Sam Laporta is he was number 1 on mine. I had him and Kelsey 1A, 1B.
Mm-hmm.
It's really going to come down to touchdowns though. Can you, it's hard to get more than 10 touchdowns, especially for a tight end.
For sure.
I mean, so we know that his touchdowns are going to go down. We just got to hope that the consistency is there, which it should be, and his yards. But, I mean, also with St. Brown, as that true number 1, you really don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah, especially, with St. Brown. St. Brown's going to take a lot of the touches as well. He's going to get his. And then somebody else that I'm kind of a lot of people are sleeping on is Jameson Williams, and I think he's going to be somebody that can take a step forward this year as well.
We hope.
We hope. There is a lot of mouths to feed out there. They have a really good offense. They have Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery as well. So it is going to be something hard to repeat for sure, is getting a lot of those touchdowns. Where are they all going to come from? We know that this is going to be a top tier offense, but is this offense going to make Sam Laporta a number 1 tight end again? We hope so.
And then from a fantasy standpoint, though, are you taking Sam Laporta in the second round? I mean, would you?
Hey, see,
that's a big reach. And me personally, I'd rather wait to get Mark Andrews. I think Colt said in the 4th round. I'd rather do that.
Yep, 2-round discount.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think ADP for tight ends right now is just kind of ridiculous in a way. I don't think I would take him in the second round for sure. I would wait for him maybe in the 3rd. Maybe I would love to get a tight end. If I'm reaching for a tight end that early, the earliest I'll take is the 4th round.
He went 305 in this draft that I did.
Oh, did he?
So middle of the 3rd round is about where he went. Guys who went ahead of him were people like Devon Achane, Travis Etienne, Drake London, Josh Jacobs, Isaiah Pacheco. So that's sort of where you're seeing. He's, I think, around the top of the 3rd, middle of the 3rd is where he's going. Okay. Yeah, so he's going to fall within that range. The one thing I'll say about this team and why I do think he has a lot of ability to succeed again is what they have done in Detroit is they've built a system where they have a lot of ability to repeat.
Yeah.
Now, what I mean for repeat is specifically what they have done is the ability to repeat their consistency metrics that are going to lead to similar results. Jared Goff finished as the 7th most consistent quarterback. Jahmyr Gibbs finished as the 10th most consistent running back. Amon-Ra St. Brown finished as the 3rd most consistent wide receiver. And Sam Laporta finished as the number 1 most consistent tight end last year.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a group that this was a fluke. This team is built off of consistency and success. And this is not, I don't see this going away. They brought back all the same pieces. They continue to build on the offensive line, and the coaching staff is all the same. I mean, I don't see a world where he may take a slight dip, but we're not talking going from the tight end 1 to the tight end 9. There's no promises he's going to finish as the 1 again, but I think at most you're getting the tight end 3.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's a really good point there, and you've convinced me. So I'm taking him at the in the second round.
So, hey,
I would do it, man.
So you're going to draft him in our league, first round pick.
Oh, man. I'm going to draft him in our league in the second round. So
I would do it. I'm telling you, this is not a fluke. He's going to have another great season.
Oh, yeah. And he's still so young, too. Like,
yeah, it's gonna be great. It's insane.
It's going to be amazing.
Him and McBride are going to be like the Kelseys.
Yeah, they're going to take over.
Yeah,
so.
It does look that way. I mean, 23. I mean, that's crazy.
Yep. Well, that's our top 10.
Honorable mention to TJ Hawkinson. He's just left off due to injury, but if he comes back, I know a lot of people are saying he could start the year on PUP. That's the only reason he's left off. We understand how good he is. With the injury, we're sort of leaving him off right now until further notice.
Yeah. So glad you mentioned him. Yeah, he would. He's the only reason why we left him off is just because of that. But yeah, he'll be good. He'll be back. This ACL, MCL will probably limit him for a while, but he'll be back. He's still youngish, 27.
Oh, show.
So, but well, yeah, that'll be it. That'll do it for us today. That was our top 10 tight end rankings. We hope you guys enjoyed. Let us know if we're wrong. Let us know if we're right. Whatever you decide, like if you guys think that we should have been higher on somebody else, then feel free to leave a comment or to email us. You could email us any questions that you have as well. We will literally answer anything. So special shout out to David for being here with us today.
Appreciate y'all for having me, man.
We love you.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming on.
It was a blast. Luis, you're fired, baby.
Yeah,
they got a new co-host. Yeah. The ratings are going to go through the roof, baby.
Woo! All right. Well, that will do it for us today for the Halftime Adjustments podcast. We appreciate you guys listening all the way through. Feel free to message us or to email us with any of your questions or concerns. Feel free to share this podcast with nobody because you guys want the edge. All right. Well, we'll see you guys later. Y'all have a good one.